revealing the word presence. Elisha and the bears. 2 Kings 2:23-24. And Elisha went up from thence unto Bethel. And as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city, and mocked him, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back, and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of Adonai. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the woods, and tare 40 and 2 children of them. The punishment for such childish antics may seem harsh, but the reality is that name-calling was not the only issue here. Let's look back and examine the true circumstances surrounding that period in Bethel. After King Solomon's death, Rehoboam became ruler of the Israelite tribes. However, as prophesied by Ahijah, for 1 Kings 11:31-35, the house of Israel was divided into 2 kingdoms, for the people revolted against heavy taxes levied by Solomon and Rehoboam. 10 of the 12 tribes withdrew their allegiance to the house of David and proclaimed Jeroboam their king, forming the northern kingdom of Israel, Samaria. King Jeroboam rebuilt and fortified Shechem as the capital of the northern kingdom, and fearing that pilgrimages to the temple in Jerusalem prescribed by the law might be an occasion for his people to go back to their old allegiance, he built 2 state temples with golden calves, one in Bethel and the other in Dan. 1 Kings 12:26-30. And Jeroboam said to himself in his heart, The kingdom will probably go back to King David's house. If the people continue going to the temple of Adonai in Jerusalem to offer sacrifices, they will want to be ruled again by Rehoboam, king of Judah. Then they will kill me and follow Rehoboam, king of Judah. King Jeroboam asked for advice. Then he made 2 golden calves. It is too long a journey for you to go to Jerusalem to worship, he said to the people. Israel, here are your gods who brought you out of Egypt. Jeroboam put 1 golden calf in the city of Bethel and the other in the city of Dan. This became a very great sin, because the people traveled as far as Dan to worship the calf there. Jeroboam ordained a feast on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the feast that was in Judah, and offered sacrifices on the altar. So he did at Bethel, sacrificing to the calves that he had made. And at Bethel he installed the priests of the high places which he had made. So he made offerings on the altar which he had made at Bethel on the 15th day of the 8th month, in the month which he had devised in his own heart. And he ordained a feast for the children of Israel, and offered sacrifices on the altar, and burned incense. Later in the next chapter, we see Yahuwah condemning Jeroboam's actions while he burned incense on the golden calf altar. 1 Kings 13. And behold, a man of Yah went from Judah to Bethel by the word of Adonai, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. Then he cried out against the altar by the word of Adonai and said, O altar, altar! Thus says Adonai, Behold, a child, Josiah by name, shall be born to the house of David, and on you he shall sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense on you, and men's bones shall be burned on you. And he gave a sign the same day, saying, This is the sign which the Lord has spoken. Surely the altar shall split apart, and the ashes on it shall be poured out. So it came to pass when King Jeroboam heard the saying of the man of Yah, who cried out against the altar in Bethel, that he stretched out his hand from the altar, saying, Arrest him! Then his hand, which he stretched out toward him, withered, so that he could not pull it back to himself. The altar also was split apart, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of Yah had given by the word of Adonai. After this event, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way, but again he made priests from every class of people for the high places. Whoever wished, he consecrated him, and he became one of the priests of the high places. And this thing was the sin of the house of Jeroboam. Now it's been made clear that Bethel was not in right standing with Yahweh. Idol worship had taken over the city since the rule of King Jeroboam. But what does this have to do with Elisha and the bear's mauling of the 42 children? When Elisha drew near to Bethel, and a group of people mocked him. Many versions say these were little children, KJV, boys, NIV, or small boys, ESV. The Hebrew phrase is a combination of the noun na'ar and the adjective katan. What do these mean? The word na'ar, which is often rendered as children boys, has a broad range of meaning. It can denote everyone from baby Moses, Exod 2:6, to fully grown Absalom, 2 Sam 14:21. A na'ar can also designate a servant, Gen 22:3, armor bearer, Judges 9:54, king's official, 2 Kings 19:6, and significantly for us, a priest, when Sam says 2:17. The Hebrew adjective katan means small, little, or young. The question is, how young? This same Hebrew combination, na'ar katan, is used to describe a mature rebel named Hadad, the Edomite, 1 Kings 11:17. Likewise, when Solomon takes the throne at about the age of 20, he describes himself as a na'ar katon, 1 Kings 3:7. Obviously, he and Hadad were not elementary-aged little boys. Thus, at a bare minimum, we can say it's highly unlikely the people who mocked Elisha were little children or small boys. It's much more probable that these were young men and they were called na'ar, not in reference to their gender, male, but their office as servants, leading us to assume these were 42 priestly servants attached to that city's idolatrous shrine. It is possible that Elisha encountered these same men beforehand while following Elijah to the Jordan River. 2 Kings 2:1. And it came to pass, when Yahweh was about to take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Then Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, please, for Adonai has sent me on to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As Adonai lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahuwah will take away your master from over you today?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." As we previously read, these sons of the prophets were not prophets of Yahuwah. Instead, they would have been prophets of Baal, idol worshippers. The mocking chants of these men, "Go up, thou baldhead, go up, thou baldhead," can be interpreted in several ways. The word to go up in Hebrew is Allah. To go up, ascend, climb. This is the same term used when going up to Jerusalem and the temple. You make aliyah. During ancient times, locations of worship were usually established in high places, as we can see throughout the Old Testament. The same would be true for the placement of the golden calf in Bethel. Jeroboam would have erected this image in a high place, requiring the people to go up and worship. When the men yell for Elisha to go up, it's possible that they're instructing him to ascend to the high place in Bethel and make a sacrifice to the golden calf. Refusal to participate in the Israelite civil cult had led to the murder of hundreds of prophets of Yahuwah at the ends of Ahab's forces. Non-compliance with the demands to engage in pagan worship would have resulted in Elisha's death, as it had for so many other prophets. However, another assumption might be made if we assume that these are the same men who prophesied Elijah would be caught up in a whirlwind. By telling Elisha to go up, the wording is not simply telling him to leave their presence, but to leave this world. The addition of the insult baldhead only accentuates the threatening nature of their approach. The term used here, which is translated baldhead, is not the usual term for baldness, as is normal to aging men. Rather, it is a term referring to those suffering from a leprous condition and therefore ceremonially impure or unclean. Not only was this a term of mockery, but also of religious and societal ostracism and condemnation directed at the prophet of Yahuwah. Elisha cursed these men in proportion to what they would have done to him had he remained silent in this circumstance, as Psalm 105:15 reads, "Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm." Yahuwah speaks of the punishment for those who persist in worshiping idols in Hosea 13. And now they sin more and more, and have made them molten images of their silver, and idols according to their own understanding, all of it the work of the craftsman. They say of them, "Let the men that sacrifice kiss the calves. I will meet them as a bear that is bereaved of her whelps, and will rend the caul of their heart, and there will I devour them like a lion. The wild beast shall tear them." The 42 men served as an example of Yahweh's wrath. About 300 years later, we see the fulfillment of 1 Kings 13 and judgment of Bethel. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel sin, had made, both that altar and the high place King Josiah broke down. And he burned the high place, and crushed it to powder, and burned the wooden image. Now Josiah also took away all the shrines of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel had made to provoke Yahuwah to anger. And he did to them according to all the deeds he had done in Bethel. He executed all the priests of the high places who were there, on the altars, and burned men's bones on them. And he returned to Jerusalem. In conclusion, a strong message was sent to the city and her inhabitants. Do not be deceived. Yahuwah is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap.